And my topic tonight is about CRO driving conversions from your Facebook campaigns. In particular, this one's a bit more focused to the top of funnel, but you'll see a lot of hopefully actionable takeaways that you can actually apply to your Facebook campaigns tomorrow. So I'll jump in. So a bit of a background. Does anyone or has anyone ever watched The Biggest Loser at all back in their time? So I'm not going to judge. The face might look a bit familiar. So that's Glenn McIntosh, and he's the weight management psychologist from I think a couple of seasons of The Biggest Loser. So I work freelance for Glenn, and despite what you might think about a psychologist, he is a very switched on person when it comes to productizing his service. So he has a lot of online courses that he runs around weight management psychology, which are very fun to run Facebook ads, as I'm sure you could imagine, with all my ads getting blocked and having to spend a lot of time on Facebook support. And so Glenn owns the weight management psychology brand, which is an entity of its own, and that's where all his online courses go through. Now, once a quarter, he will run like a paid course. And to help fuel that, what we run is an ongoing lead generation campaign. And Glenn has lots of other things like a podcast, video series. He's pretty much a digital marketer as a psychologist. So I love him and he's great to work with, which is also great because Glenn is also a brand of his own. He has a really strong personal brand across Instagram more so than Facebook. But we really like to leverage these two audiences quite well. And what happened was, as I mentioned, we have programs every quarter, and back in 2017, so this is 2 years ago now, we started using Facebook lead ads to really drive some top of funnel conversions that would fuel when we would have these courses. We could send those out as emails, and we found that was where like a lot of our conversions were really coming from. And this was just an ongoing lead gen campaign that we ran for quite a while, as I'll mention. When we set it up in 2017, we had a MailChimp audience that Glenn had already acquired throughout his time in the industry of 10,000 users. So these are people who were interested in weight management psychology, people who had signed up to follow his journey. And what we did was we created a 1% lookalike audience in Facebook of that, which was about 160K, much the same as probably what you're all familiar with. And when we ran that at the time, and with Glenn historically, we've only ever ran newsfeed placement ads. At the time, Facebook was beautiful to run ads on. It was so cheap, whereas now it's very expensive, which is why I'm here tonight talking to you about this. And we ran them from his business page, so weight management psychology, not Glenn McIntosh, which I'll touch base on what that means in a second. And so we started that in August 2017, and these two ads here, so the lead generation campaign was for an ebook that would just kind of give an overview as to like how you can use weight management psychology practices to apply it and really kind of improve your life. And so we literally ran these two ads for about a year and a half. And in that time period, for the first 6 months, the CPA was about $1.50, which we're really happy with. Because the conversion rate to the bottom of the funnel when it came to those actual courses was quite good. And because this was a lookalike of his email audience, we found that they were also really relevant users. So in total, over about a year and a half, we generated just under 9,000 leads. But what we noticed is that after 6 months, the CPA really started to rise. And this is the start of, I guess, 2018, where you might realize that Facebook kind of just got really expensive to start using, and it's only increased ever since. So as I mentioned, these two ads have literally ran for a year and a half. Their frequency still only, I think, 1.8, so like it's still relatively low. But what we wanted to do was really kind of take some time to experiment and understand how we could optimize our ad sets and our targeting and get the most out of these lead generations and really just reduce our CPA back to, as low as we possibly could, because obviously that means more leads at the end of the day. So the problem was that it was March 2019 this year, and we in total had spent 27K, and our CPA was now $3.04, so it's doubled over this period. And we honestly weren't happy with that. And we had a couple of hunches, and one of them was that we'd never actually ran Instagram ad placements, and this is at the time of 2017 when we started. I think story placements had only just come out. So it was quite young even at that time. And we'd never ran, Instagram even wasn't kind of what it was for brands back in 2017. It's grown really more significantly. So we wanted to trial Instagram ad placements. And we also wanted to try ad delivery from Glenn's personal page because I read a couple articles suggesting that ads from like creators or any entities that aren't actual brands themselves will perform better in Facebook's ad algorithm. So we had a bit of a hunch around that as well, and we really just wanted to put some money behind it and experiment and really address what we could. So the new strategy that we created was we were going to actually target 2 new audiences. So we were going to have 2 campaigns on a campaign level, one of which, now that we've generated 9,000 leads, we wanted to create a lookalike of those users from that lead generation campaign. So these are users who are actually specifically interested in that type of content, not just people who are in their MailChimp CRM, so it's a bit more broad. And we also had never actually excluded anyone who had downloaded that yet. So we wanted to kind of reduce our ad spend, so we excluded anyone who had downloaded the ebook in the past. It seems like common sense, but we just ran it for so long and let it tick over that it was time to do that now. And then we ran an updated lookalike of the MailChimp audience. So by this point, they're grown quite significantly in about a year and a half. So we just really wanted to update that. And again, we excluded anyone who had downloaded the ebook, but to avoid any overlap between the campaigns, we excluded also that lookalike audience as well too. And then we also excluded people who had unsubscribed for their mailing list in general because we just didn't want to piss them off if they've seen our ads or they're obviously not happy with the content. And we also wanted to, as I mentioned, compare the performance of ads between the personal page from Glenn and the WMP business page. So the WMP, they only have a Facebook page. They don't have an Instagram page. It's got 11,000 followers. And Glenn's personal page, he has 3K on Facebook and 17K on Instagram. So you can even see that like he is bigger than his business. So we really wanted to try and leverage that. And to make this even more complex, we didn't want to set all of these up under the one campaign, which I'll show you what that looks like. We wanted to make these so that they wouldn't compete. So we've had a lot of experiences where we've added all these ad sets under one campaign, and they've all, Facebook will identify one top performing ad set, and within a week it will just optimize that as the top performer. So what we wanted to do was make these actually compete against each other, which we knew would increase our CPA, but we would get kind of more accurate results. And then that was actually a good thing because once we stopped these from competing, our CPA would also lower after that once they stopped competing. So this is what it looks like. I'm gonna try and give it a bit of a rundown. So on the campaign level, we had these 2 new campaigns, the ebook lookalike, so the people who have downloaded the ebook, and then the new MailChimp lookalike, which is the total MailChimp audience. Within these, we wanted to experiment with the page it was coming from. So you can see we had the WMP page, a Facebook placement, and then there were the 2 ad assets that I showed you. So there was the ebook asset and the photo of Glenn holding his hands up, looking very serious. And then we also experimented from Glenn's page with a Facebook placement with the same images, and also Glenn's page from an Instagram placement with the same images. And we didn't do the WMP just because they didn't have an Instagram page. And we ran those across for about a month. And so we did an initial test period, and we spent about 1.8K on this, which is $60 a day in total. And it generated 460 leads, and our CPA went up. So it's $3.90 instead of $3, which sounds horrible, and you'd probably wonder why I still have a job, but there were certain things that we were looking at in this. So this is the results from round 1 from the MailChimp lookalike audience. So one thing that we noticed here, looking at the data, was that Instagram placements were ridiculously expensive. So the average CPA was $9 for Instagram. We also noticed that the WMP placements from their business page actually outperformed the ads from Glenn's page. And the CPAs on average were about $4.28 for that. And in total, this audience spent just about $900. Its average CPA was $7. So pretty much right away we wrote that one off. Like it was good to get data and see how that performed. But what we were really looking for was these golden nuggets. So this is the ebook lookalike audience, so the people who were already familiar with it. Now the CPA for this in total was $363, but you can see right here from the WMP page with those 2 assets, the average CPA was $230. So now we're under. We're actually getting good data on what it was that we wanted to achieve. And we could see that the average CPA coming from the Facebook placements was $3. Instagram was still quite expensive. So I guess kind of taking in all of that data, there were a couple of optimizations that we made across these ad sets. And one of them was that we established that Instagram placements were just too expensive. The other was that the MailChimp lookalike audience was obviously too expensive. And the ads from the WMP business page outperformed the personal page. So in taking that into consideration, we moved on to round 2. So again, really looking at what we can leverage from the data from these newly optimized audiences. So moving forward, we pulled out those top 3 audiences, which I mentioned. And we found that, sorry, I should have mentioned from the Glenn page with the Facebook placement, the image of Glenn holding up his hands performed the best, which kind of makes sense because that audience is familiar with him. So round 2, another month, we spent another 1.8K. This time we had 602 leads at a CPA of $3.03. So now we're on par. We haven't really got far in terms of lowering our CPA, but again, there are more insights to uncover from this. It's very pixelated, it wasn't really to it. The top performing ad out of these 3 ad sets was the from the Glenn's page, and it was the image of, sorry, it was from the WMP page, and it was the image of Glenn. In this case, we had a CPA of 227, which again really outperformed. It generated half the leads throughout that total campaign. So from that, we established that the top performing audience now that we'd prioritize is that particular ad with a CPA of 227. So we'd lowered our CPA by about 70, 80% at that point. So we're really happy at that. But then we kind of had another hunch, is that we did an experiment with Instagram stories, and organically Instagram stories perform really well for these guys. So we kind of went back to the beginning. We said we were happy with the Facebook ads, but we just wanted to do another round just to experiment with Instagram stories. So what we did was we pulled out those top performing ad sets that we'd already established moving into round 2. And we ran those across Instagram placements, and we created specific assets for those. So again, we had them running from both the WMP and Glenn page. They were both an Instagram stories placement, and we had the 2 images, but we also ran a video. Now this was the video, wasn't anything special. It was just a sliding animation where the book and the text would just slide on. And the results were really surprising. So in round 3, we didn't put as much into this one. We ran it for 2 weeks, spent $400, generated 138 leads at a $3.01 CPA. So already, it was already on par with what we'd already were performing historically. But again, the data we really wanted to pull out was this. So the video ad generated 108 leads out of 138 in total. And it spent, the average CPA was 225 on that one. So again, it was lower actually than the Facebook ad set as well too. So that was by far the top performing one. Any other placements or ad variations were much more expensive. So you can see that there's some that are $10, $9. And again, we just weren't going to waste our time pursuing those more money in the sense. So kind of after those 2 experiments and kind of optimizing our ad sets over time and really looking into the data, we were able to see that these 2 variations were the top performers out of everything that we had. So our new CPA for a Facebook placement was 227. And then for the Instagram story video, it was 225. So we were able to lower that by about 80 cents in total. So I hope that kind of gives you guys a bit of a insight as to what you can do with CRO on a paid social level. And it's always really important to pull out as much data as you possibly can. It's like Facebook's ad platform is amazing for doing that. You can even pull out like age, demographics, gender, a lot of things like that. And you can start to play around with those audiences and look at the data. And I mean, as you saw, like our CPAs increased before they actually decreased, but the end result was well worth it. When you look at terms of like the scale of, I say scale, they're a small business. So like for them, 9,000 leads is a lot, but when you're looking at optimizing the cost per lead across that for a small business, it really adds up to the bottom line at the end of the day. So I hope that gave you some good insights on Facebook optimization. Thank you.